All right, welcome back to another episode of Visionary Living, the podcast. I am your host, Rico from Puerto Rico, and I am here with a really awesome friend of mine, Noralyn. Noralyn, please introduce yourself for everyone.
Hi guys, my name is Noralyn Vasquez. I am actually turning 29 in 2 weeks, so I'm excited. I am the training coordinator for Spanish trainings at Gratitude Training. I'm a life coach, and I am studying to become a transformational trainer.
Awesome. Welcome. And so today we have an interesting topic. Today's topic is to be human, and what does it mean to be human, and where is the power of a human being? So just kind of stick with us as we get the podcast started. All right, guys. So we are back with our episode of Visionary Living. I can't really hear myself. In case you can. Oh, that's good. Perfect. I just want to make sure. All right. So today we have a topic called "To Be Human," and so why don't you get us started? What does it mean to be human? What do you mean by that? Like when we say "to be human" as the title of our podcast, what are we speaking into today?
So what I want to speak into in regards to being human is most people avoid experiencing emotions, experiencing whatever it's coming up for them. In the past, there was such things as boys don't cry, showing your emotion is weakness. And I feel as we're becoming more of a conscious society, whether it be through spiritual work, transformational work, people are coming to a place of, I'm angry. I shouldn't feel angry. I shouldn't feel sad. However, we are in a human body. Part of the human condition is allowing ourselves to feel the emotions that are coming up, experiencing our experiences. And that to me is like being human and acknowledging that we're human in body form and feeling whatever's coming up.
So what I hear you saying really is kind of like embracing pain or embracing really anything that comes up for us emotionally speaking. Is that kind of what you're speaking into?
Yes. Embracing it, whether it be heartbreak, sadness, grief, all that, because if we don't allow ourselves to feel this, the energy gets stuck in our body. Some people try to suppress it. Other people try to, what I like to say, if you're in a roller coaster, right? And emotions can be like a roller coaster. So either you can go straight through the pain, the grief, and break on the other side, or ride the roller coaster going up and down, up and down, up and down, where you're just never really getting in there and feeling it. And it's just, your life's going to be a roller coaster.
So I guess my follow-up question is what would you say is the danger or the concern for avoiding the emotions or not experiencing the experience?
So one thing that for me is very important is when you avoid experiencing the experience or the emotion, you're robbing yourself of accessing your powerful self. I believe that certain experiences, grief, heartbreak, those experiences show up in our lives to teach us things. Really teach us things. And not only that, but when we experience those things that show up, whether it be heartbreak, grief, we're able to really learn parts of ourselves that get to heal. And in the process of experiencing, you're healing those areas of your life. And when you fully experience it and observe it, because you don't want to get lost in your experience. You want to experience it, be the observer.
So all right, so you highlighted something, getting lost in your experience. All right, so you first spoke about experiencing your experience. So like going directly to the source of the pain or directly to the source of the experience. But then you said don't get lost in it. So can you highlight a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yes. So getting lost in it, I'm sure people have had experiences where they felt sad and they're like, I can't get rid of this sadness. Like everything is just so sad. I feel hopeless. And like they're in a place where like everything is hopeless. They can't get out of it and they can't stop crying. Like for them, there's no light. They feel like they're like in a dark tunnel and there's no light. That's getting lost in the experience where you're becoming sadness, where then people start believing I'm just a sad person. I'm just a hopeless person.
So how do you find the balance between the two?
That's the first key into stepping into your power, being able to like know that you're experiencing sadness in the moment. You're not sadness. Like just because you're experiencing sadness, pain, heartbreak, that's not who you are. And that's the first step. Second step is become like an observer. By becoming an observer, you're then able to observe like, what is this sadness? Why do I feel sad? Is it because of X, Y, and Z, or is it something else and this triggered the sadness? And in that process of being in the observation and also observing, where do I feel the pain? Is it in my chest? Is it in my heart? Is it in my shoulders? Like, where is it? And then you're allowing that emotion to flow through you, leave your body.
So what I almost hear is almost kind of like, I don't like to use the word disconnection, but I guess distinction. Making sure that your emotional body and what you're feeling is separate from your identity, right? That's at least what I'm hearing you say. So it's almost like feeling sadness. Well, that's an emotion that comes and goes, but then being sadness and identifying myself as a sad individual overall is kind of the distinction between going directly to the source and then getting lost in it. Is that what I hear you saying?
Yes. And it's something that's very challenging, especially if you're in like an unconscious state. You may feel sad, you may feel angry. You're like, I'm not that. And people will resist it. Some people who, let's say they believe like, oh, I have anger issues. But do they really have anger issues, or are they attaching the emotion of anger as their identity? Instead of being like, I feel angry in this moment, and I'm going to choose to express my anger, or I'm going to choose to just experience it and let it go. But the people that feel, oh, I have anger issues, they're getting lost in that anger and believing that that's part of who they are.
That's interesting stuff. And so what makes you passionate about this topic? Like why to be human, and why experience your experience when coming on here and talking about it?
One, I think it's a very important conversation that gets to be had, especially as people become more conscious or in more transformational work, spirituality work, of not avoiding experiencing, remembering that we're still human, we still get to experience it, and it's okay to experience sadness. It's okay to experience this. The other thing is the past, I want to say 8 to 9 months, I've had grief, loss, heartbreak, a lot of emotions show up, which was really testing me and made me question. It made me question, am I wrong for feeling sad? Am I wrong for feeling anger? Am I wrong for this? Because if I'm in this transformational work, trying to be studying to be a trainer, a life coach, why am I feeling this? And then realizing that I'm human. I'm in a human body. I get to experience it. And when I gave myself the permission to begin to experience and like take myself, well, I don't want to say take myself out, but have an awareness of, I'm going to observe what I'm feeling, where in my body I'm feeling it. Why am I feeling this anger? What's triggering it? When I put myself in that discovery, I felt the pain and it sucked. It sucked. There were moments where I was like, oh my God, like it would come out of nowhere and I would need to find a place and just experience the anger and the sadness, the tears, the pain in my chest, where like the clenching of my arms, like all that stuff. And once I got through all of it and I went on the other side, I experienced my power and owned my power to the point that I've been experiencing freedom a lot. Freedom is a new word for me. And if it wasn't for me experiencing all my experiencing, realizing that I am human, that it is okay, I wouldn't be able to be here today talking so passionately about it, because I'm so grateful for my discovery of experiencing that experience and being an observation and owning my power. And I think as humans, we are afraid of owning our power. There's a fear of like, what will happen if I own my power? And part of owning your power is experiencing your experience.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. And you know, it's funny too, because I heard a wise man once taught me that there's this cool saying that I like to repeat and to pass on. But it says that in our cultural conditioning, like, men have learned to protect their hearts from pain, and that a powerful man is the type of man who just lives with a broken heart, as opposed to protecting their heart from being broken or from pain. So yeah, so that kind of resonates with me in some way, shape, or form. And so I guess my follow-up question on what you said is when was that first time or that moment when you realized the power of experiencing your experience? You know, like, obviously there was probably a conditioning that you had that said resist emotions, resist feelings, resist my experience. And then there was that moment of clarity where you said, wow, there's power in actually just surrendering and letting go and actually like diving deep into it. So when was that, or what was that moment like for you?
I would say the first time it happened was when my grandfather passed away. He was someone I was very close to. He was, you know, you always have that one member in your family that's like your like connection. Like, he rooted for me. He always believed in me. I love my grandfather. And him passing away, he passed away in the middle of a training. I was in a training. And I knew he wasn't doing well. I had booked a flight Sunday after the training thinking I would make it. And Saturday I got the call. And I remember, like, I'm like, I can't feel this right now. I'm in the middle of a training. Like, I need to. And there was a moment where I allowed myself to feel the pain, the anger for, like, why did it happen the way that it happened? He was actually the first person I've ever lost close to me. And he was someone who was very close to me. So out of all the people close to my circle, him, I was like, that's not fair. Why couldn't it be someone to like slowly ease me into like grief?
Why couldn't it be someone else?
And all those thoughts came to me, and that was the first moment I allowed myself to feel. And then I felt a level of peace. And, you know, life is very interesting. Then a couple months later, a relationship of almost 8 years ended. And it felt like it was out of nowhere. And then that was the second level. I was like, oh my God, I get to experience, it's like grief again. And this time, like, I dug deeper. And through, especially, and then in the process of that, my grandma passed away, his wife. And that was another grief. And this all happened within a span of 3 months.
Wow. That's intense.
And growing up, I would always hid my emotions or bottled up my anger. And I allowed myself to experience like anger, like, why is this happening? Why did it have to happen this way? Why couldn't I control it? What could I have done different? The heartbreak of like wanting to be tested, of like who I am as a person, questioning who I am. All of that, I allowed myself to experience it. And there was the moment when I realized I am powerful, and all these events have been pushing me to own my power. Like I said, my grandfather was a person that always saw how powerful I was since I was little. Always pushing me to be that, pushing me to be the person that he saw in me. And he was like, his death started that chain. And once I experienced who I am, I was like, wow, I am powerful. I am significant. I can inspire people. I can inspire women. And doing that shift, I started seeing people around me shift and believing of how powerful they are. And not only believing it, but owning it. And that to me was like the gift of allowing myself to experience everything that showed up in my life.
Wow, you have some really intense stories, and I acknowledge you for the journey that you've taken up until now. So thank you for sharing vulnerably with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I love this topic. I think this is great. So for anybody who's listening live right now on our live feed, please feel free to ask any questions if you have any, or if you have any comments, or if you want to kind of like, expand about what we're talking about, feel free to comment on that. And for the viewers at home, I kind of want you to consider and listen, kind of check in with your internal dialogue, the thoughts in your head. And maybe you have a moment where you can see either you denied yourself your experience, your emotional connection to whatever was occurring at that moment for you. Or maybe you did allow yourself to experience your experience, much like what we're talking here, and did indeed find kind of like a powerful place to stand or to shift the conversations that were occurring at that moment. So I definitely want to make sure that all of our viewers and listeners are participant as well, that you guys can participate in what's going on. So yeah, okay, cool. So how long have you been in transformational work, and how long have you been kind of like developing yourself in this domain, and what drives you for that?
I've been in transformational work for almost 2.5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And for me has been, I was a shy, quiet little girl.
Mm-hmm.
I like to say there was a moment in my life where I became shy and quiet, started doubting myself.
Mm-hmm.
And by stepping to transformational work, I saw myself where there's moments like, I'll be like, oh my God, I don't recognize my voice. Like, who is speaking? And that is like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, and I also love being able to support people. I'm committed to people getting their significance in this world,
Mm-hmm.
getting how worthy they are, how powerful they are. And being in the work, and as I do the work for myself, I'm able to see shift in people.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the I am because you are that we mention sometimes.
Yeah.
And I love being in conversations with people where they're like getting who they are. It inspires me.
Just to piggyback off of that, like you, I've also been submerged in the work for about the same amount of time, about 2 years or a little bit more or less. And and it's funny because like when I meet strangers or when I'm interacting with people, I always bring my knowledge and experiences from transformation and from coaching, and I always bring it to the conversations, and I always drive the conversations deep, and a lot of people are always, I get this a lot, it's very frequent, where they look at me like I have 3 eyes, and they're like, who are you? Like, what just happened? And I think kind of like what you're speaking into, it really is just coming from what conversations we're driving with other people. Where are we driving those conversations to? What experiences are we creating in that moment? What are we focusing our attention on in terms of conversations and development and stuff? Do you have any kind of input on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of us have these conversations in the back of our mind,
Mm-hmm.
that run us. And it's really funny to see once we shift the conversation, what we create.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time, I was like, I'm the shy, quiet little girl. Like I would tell people and people were like, but you're not shy. And I'm like, yeah, I really am. So I would try to prove that I was shy by showing off shy.
Hey, everyone, I'm shy. Look over here.
So, and that was just the conversation I had. And it was funny. I always wanted to prove them right. Like I am shy. So I would show up shy.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment I let it go, it's kind of like it became a game for me. Like, oh, I'm going to show you I'm not shy anymore. I'm going to show you how much I've changed.
That's awesome. And I actually spoke about this in my last episode, and it's just perfect. So I'll bring it back up again. What I've observed when it came to transformational work, like the trainings that we're talking about, leadership trainings, and really speaking into behavioral conditioning and recontextualizing our relationship to these things. I've noticed a lot of people that come in with a certain posture, and their posture is maybe like hunchbacked, or like it exhibits almost like insecurity, their posture, right? And then we go through, whatever, 4 days or 5 days or however long it is for that transformational process or that training or that workshop. And then at the end of it, it's like their posture changes completely. And we didn't even work on physical conversations. We didn't actually work towards the physical. We spoke about conceptual stuff, and we kind of just recontextualize your mind and the way that you think and perceive the world. And almost instantaneously after learning these concepts, I always see their posture shifts. And not only that, maybe they can speak louder, with more power than they've ever been before. And kind of like you said, like people will go from shy and reserved to like, willing and daring to risk and to be seen. Do you kind of have that experience in your journey as well, or?
Oh, for sure. So I used to have longer hair when I did my trainings, and I used to use my hair to hide. Even when I was in college, like if I didn't want to see someone or someone to see me, I would flip my hair wherever they were standing and walk the other way. Like I used to use my hair to hide myself. And as you can see, this is long for me right now.
That's like to your shoulders only, right?
Yeah. And that was huge for me, like cutting my hair, moving it out of my face, showing my face. That was one of the things for me that like stuck out, like short hair, don't care.
Short hair, don't care. That's why I keep my hair short. I like to be seen. Okay, cool. So I just wanted to bring us back to visionary living. So what I'm going to ask from you is to kind of dig up a story that you have in your past where you had a vision for what you wanted to create or manifest in your life. And you used that vision almost like a lighthouse, like a way to see the direction that you're going despite any circumstances, opportunities, or distractions that might have come up. So I don't know if you maybe have a story that you can think of right now where you maybe were challenged against things that were like trying to stop you from having what you say you want, but you continue to see that vision, and you continue to step forward into that vision until you had it happen. Do you have something like that?
I have a couple.
Okay. Well, why don't we go ahead and start with one and see where we go?
It's hard. I'm trying to think. I guess the one that I could say even brought me here to even meeting you and everything was so like I said, I did transformational work, and more than a year ago. It was in January of 2018. I was coaching a team. And every time I came down here, I lived in Jersey back then, it was so hard to leave Florida. I was like, I don't want to leave. Like, I just don't want to leave. And during that journey, I was like, you know what? I'm going to move to Florida. And I had a great job. Like, everything was set in Jersey. And I was like, willing to let it go. I put my 2 weeks notice before even having a job here in Florida. And I was like, I'm not going to move to Florida to have a job. Every place I called was like, no, you need to live here to have an interview. And I was like, but I'm moving to Florida. Like, no, we need an address. And I was like, okay. So I put my 2 weeks notice. The journey was coming to an end. And at that point, I was like, well, it's been like 2 weeks without work now. So what am I going to do? And I decided to go for it. So I decided to go to Puerto Rico to visit my grandfather. While I'm in Puerto Rico, I find out that I got a job.
Hey.
It was amazing.
Yay.
And that was the last communication I had because the power went out island-wide. And so,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was the last communication
I had. You have a job, click.
And the power goes out. And not only that, my mom dropped my phone because in the night she didn't drop my phone, so my phone was broken.
Oh, no.
And certain phones can't be fixed in Puerto Rico by law.
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't know why.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
I didn't know that till I found out. So I was like, okay, so I have a broken phone. There's no power. All right. And so somehow I got in communication with my dad to book my flight because I needed to be in Florida. This is Tuesday. I needed to be in Florida on Friday. Again, no phone.
Okay.
So we figured this out. My dad books my flight, and I move here with a duffel bag. Oh, because I was going to be in Puerto Rico for a couple of days, like 4 days. So the clothes that I went to Puerto Rico with is what I moved here with a duffel bag.
Oh, wow.
I didn't have a place to stay yet. So I stayed at a friend's house. And all that. And then I moved here, and then I didn't have family. The people that received me here were people that I had been working with and people that had become friends. And I didn't have a car, new place. I had just started a new job. And all of that made me question, like, did I do the right thing? And as I was questioning that, I realized I did. Because that shy little girl did the most outrageous thing. In a span of less than a week, she moved her life. And I've been here for over a year now.
Wow.
And it came with its challenges, like having to find an apartment. I had 4 weeks to find an apartment. I got really lucky. Had an amazing roommate. Eventually got a car, all this stuff. And that was a huge moment of growth for me.
Almost like taking that risk, that daring to jump out of what you're comfortable doing, and honestly not even knowing how it was going to occur or how it was going to unfold, but just daring to jump anyways is kind of what I hear you say.
Yeah, not even being able to have a phone. Like I didn't have and it's crazy to think because 20 years ago people did this stuff without a phone.
Yeah,
but right? For me it was like, oh my god. And like again, I was moving here, so the people that lived here, I didn't have their phones memorized. Right. So it was a lot of creativity, a lot of stretching, a lot of growth.
And you said something that I wanted to piggyback off of, and you spoke into right or wrong, and how like at one moment you said, oh my god, did I do the right thing? And I think I might have told this story on one of my earlier episodes, like 1 or 2, but I'll just kind of reiterate it. When I kind of had a similar experience where, after I completed my transformational journey, I decided, I'm moving to Florida. And at the time, I absolutely hated Florida. Like, I was like, wait, I hate Florida though. But I decided to go anyways, because it was very powerful of an experience. And I knew that I wanted to be submerged in this work, in these conversations as continuously as possible. And in that, I also decided to step into, becoming a transformational trainer and getting into this whole like NLP and coaching, and all these conversations are very similar. And I remember a friend of mine, his name is Paul, and usually he watches, so he might even be watching now, we'll see. But a friend of mine, Paul, he asked me, he was like, hey, I thought that you had your business going in Atlanta, that you were owning and operating for like 2 years and growing, and now you just decided to move to Florida, like what's up with that? And I said, well, I mean, I found something very powerful that I wanted to explore and follow, and X, Y, and Z. And he made a comment of like, yeah, I get it. You have to let go of, some things to have better things. And I stopped for a moment, and, had I not done transformational work up until that point, I would have just simply agreed. Like, oh yeah, absolutely, But then I realized something, and I only realized this from self-development work. I realized that I don't want to compare it like, did I make the right decision or the wrong decision to move or not to move? I realized in that moment that whether I stayed where I was living, or if I moved to a new location, or if I moved to a different location than that, no matter what I was going to do with myself, because I am who I am, no matter what I did, I was going to create something powerful and amazing. But I think that a lot of people maybe get stuck in, is it the right decision, that then they don't actually access their critical thinking skills. They don't access their creativity. They don't actually like go and create something. Instead, we almost like think about what we let go of, or what opportunity we passed up on, Does that kind of resonate for you at all?
Yeah, for sure. Like moving down here, I think the reason I was able to do it was when I let go of like, did I do the right thing? Or am I doing the right thing or wrong thing? But it was more of the question was, am I following my vision? And my vision was, for years I've said, I want to get out of Jersey. I love Jersey. Don't get me wrong. I do miss bagels and pizza.
Yeah, man. Totally.
But there was something in Florida that was calling me, especially the work that I'm in. That was also calling me. And it was that really drove me. And when I shift the conversation, am I doing the right or wrong thing? The job showed up. Regardless of the challenges that came along, because old me would have been like, oh, what are the chances? Yeah, what are the chances? The power goes out island wide for the whole time I'm here, and my phone breaks. Like, it's a sign I need to go back. It was a mistake. But instead, I was, no.
And that's perfect too, because I really do think that highlights visionary living and what I speak into with my podcast. That, instead of looking at the circumstances around us and having the circumstances guide us, like you said, like, oh, the power went out, my phone broke. It looks like the universe is trying to stop me from having what it is that I say that I want. And therefore, it must be a sign. And then we surrender to whatever those circumstances are, instead of saying, okay, the universe is challenging me to see how badly do I really want what it is that I say that I want? And you know what? I'm gonna show you, universe, and you like live out of it anyways. But like you said, you needed a vision in order to overcome it. Because without a vision, we would just kind of like a paddle boat without a paddle or a sail in the middle of the water. You know what I mean? Just drifting along, doing what we do.
Yeah.
But to have that vision, I think, is paramount, because it's almost like having that lighthouse in the midst of a storm. Like I know exactly where I'm going despite anything that is occurring around me. And what do you have to say about that?
I think it also takes a level of surrender.
What do you mean by that?
Like if the lighthouse is like north and you're in that boat, it's like it's raining, I'm getting wet, I'm cold, okay, and I'm still being guided. Like I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, it's raining, I need to turn back, oh, I don't want it to rain. Like complaining. If you complain during that journey, you're missing out on lessons. If you resent what's showing up, you're missing out on lessons.
So I want you to speak into missing out on lessons. Like, obviously, since we've been doing this kind of work, we know how to author lessons and how to look from a certain vantage point that allows us that power of development. But for those who haven't maybe entered this field or this industry or this work, how can you explain simply for them, what do you mean by, oh, if I'm, lost in my experience, then I'll miss out on lessons?
Yeah. So, bringing it back to, like I shared about a heartbreak, like everyone's had their heart broken at some point, or most people. And if I had gotten lost in my experience of sadness, I am sadness, like no one wants to be with me, like all the stuff that we tell ourselves when people leave, I would have not realized that, hey, it was a call for me to step forward and a call for me to see how much I've grown, where that relationship gave me exactly what I needed. Because of that relationship, I was able to learn about like the trainings available in Florida. I was able to meet a lot of people that are now part of my life and I love and I adore. And the relationship did its purpose. And I would have missed out on the lesson of like the relationship did its purpose, and it showed me I had outgrown the relationship. And it's not a bad or wrong, but I had just outgrown it. And it was for me surrendering to my vision of like, who do I get to be to inspire people?
And so I want to highlight the way that you frame surrender, because, I think that a lot of people in our culture, when we think of surrender, we think of like, I give up. Right. But the way that you're using surrender from that leadership perspective is almost like giving over to a commitment.
Yeah. Like I literally, it's like, I would like to say, like the lighthouse is right there. And I'm like, here's my vision. I want a world that it's abundant, that's loving, that's united, and that people experience magic. I want women to get their significance, their power. Like, here it all is. Here's the package.
Right.
This is it.
Right.
Now, do with me whatever you'd like. I'm ready. Throw the storm.
Throw the storm. So instead of being in resistant to the storm, right, that we have to go through in order to get to the other side, we're just embracing it, knowing that our vision is more important.
Yes. And part of embracing it, too, is if you feel shitty, and excuse my language, if you are angry, if you feel like it's unfair, if you feel sad, feel it. That is also key. And part of that surrendering, it's like the storm's coming. Oh my God, I feel sad. I'm experiencing sadness. I'm experiencing this. Like, feel it all.
Yeah.
That's part of surrendering to that lighthouse. And then you're able to look back and be like, oh my God, there's a lighthouse. I'm so free. Like, I'm happy. I'm powerful.
Yeah.
And that's the gift that you can have by remembering to be human and experiencing the storm as it comes.
I almost think that gives us a state of power in presence and in like being in the moment, because I mean, knowing that we have the lighthouse, and this is why I think visionary living is so powerful, and that this is almost like a necessity in our world. This is why I do this podcast, is because knowing that lighthouse, seeing that lighthouse so clearly, the direction that you're trying to go to, like where you're trying to end up, I think it's the only thing that gives us the power to take all the circumstances that are around us that aren't really good feeling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That maybe are having us feel a certain way, depressed, resistant, whatever it is, all those negative feelings, right? And it's almost like, because I can see where I'm going, all of this soon shall pass. It's all temporary and I can get through it because the vision is greater than my current position or circumstance. Could you kind of speak into that on your own?
Yeah, of course. I think something that's key that throughout my journey, someone brought into my realm of knowledge was being authentic to your vision and being authentic to the moment. And I like to speak more into that as to being authentic to the moment. It could be, oh my God, it's 6 a.m. I'm so tired. I don't want to get up. I don't want to do this. And that's what I'm feeling. And I'm being authentic to that by acknowledging it. However, being authentic to the vision is like, you know what? I'm tired, but I want to share with people the importance and what they can get about experiencing their experience. So I'm going to be authentic to my vision. And then once I complete let's say I complete the podcast and then I leave, I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. I'm going to take a nap on the ride back, Yeah. And I think being able to be authentic to your vision, and it's not about suppressing it, but it's like putting a pause. I'm going to put a pause on this and I'm going to be authentic to my vision, do what I got to do to work towards my vision, and then experience what I got to experience. It's also, I think that's also a key.
A key. I like that. That's interesting. So yeah, I guess what's the biggest aha thing that you can share with us regarding your experience? Obviously we've been in conversation so far about kind of touching it, identifying it, helping people kind of connect with that. But is there like a big aha or a big a piece of value that you can kind of give to our listeners or our viewers around the conversation of my experience, like really letting it in and connecting with pain or connecting with whatever it is that I'm faced up against and resistance to right now?
I think the biggest thing for me is realizing, and I think I believe there's a fear of, if I experience the experience, like I might die. I know it's crazy, but it's like I might die. Because I remember when like heartbreak shows up, it's that like my chest hurts. I feel like it's being punched. My stomach can't eat. I can't stop crying. I feel sick. I want to throw up. It's a whole thing going, and there's a fear in there of like, I might not survive this. And when I allowed myself and surrendered to my vision, my commitment, what I'm up to, especially for like, I'm very passionate about inspiring women. And when I surrendered to that and experienced and I came on the other side, I'm like, wow, I'm alive. I didn't die. However, I came back stronger, more powerful. Like I can now stand and be like, I am powerful. I own my power. And I use my power to inspire women. And that was the aha moment. I'm not gonna die. I'm gonna survive. So when people say, "Oh, you survived your breakup," I'm like, I didn't just survive it. I lived it because I allowed myself to be human and experience it all, and continued living, and came on the other side, experiencing power, freedom, and so much gratitude.
Well, what's interesting is like, no matter what, we'll survive, right? I feel like as human beings, that's the beauty of human being, in my opinion, is that we can overcome and we can evolve and we can adapt and we can be resilient. Like whether we like it or not, we'll survive. Some of the things that I've heard people endure and that they're still alive today, and I'm like, how the hell did you survive that? Whether it be drug abuse or like a huge car accident or, some crazy circumstance that just anyone would be like, dude, something was over your shoulder protecting you. But you highlighted something very interesting, which is an assumption that I think people live out of, because I think that a lot of what drives people is the assumptions of what is, or what what is going to be the result of doing whatever it is. Like you said, like, I'm afraid I'm going to die. It's like, I don't think people have ever actually put thought into what am I afraid of when it comes to experiencing my experience, my emotions, and just going through whatever it is I'm trying to avoid right now. But by not thinking about it, then there are assumptions in place. And I think like you highlighted, that assumption is almost like death. Like what else will we be afraid of? And then when we actually start to question ourselves, like, wait, what am I afraid of? We start to realize, well, I'm afraid of maybe just failing at it, like, because death isn't like the subsequent result of that decision, right? All it is feeling, like, let yourself feel it, notice it, and look at it, as opposed to avoiding it, deflecting it. I actually, in a lot of my workshops, because I do a workshop called Successful Awareness, and in a lot of my workshops, there will be people that come in that have experience so much pain and trauma in their life that they can't even allow themselves to be serious and allow these concepts in as something that they can grow from and learn lessons from. It's almost like they constantly deflect with humor, they constantly deflect with distraction. And it's funny because they may not know what they're doing, but I do, because I've been trained to see these things and kind of guide these things, you know, in terms of behaviors. But it's a real big deal for me, because I noticed that when people avoid their pain instead of experiencing their experience, you know, that what then is created as a result in the world,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And, you know, like I actually heard from somebody, and this is a personal conversation, I won't name names or anything like that, but, you know, I heard somebody who's she's a transgender woman, and she was just talking about how, you know, she was getting hit on by a man in, you know, somewhere out in public, and she was just being clear, like, hey, I'm a transgender woman. And when the guy like got it, like understood it, he pulled out a gun and threatened her life. You know, and that's the society that we're creating and living in. Like why? How is death and like killing someone a appropriate response for, you know, you're living your life and your experience and your journey of life, however it is that's true for you.
Yeah. As I was studying in regards to experiencing your experience, I came across that some people avoid or suppress experiencing their experience by going to anger. They'll like bully people. They'll explode on people, whether it be physical, verbal, like emotional abuse, physical abuse, all of that. And that's their way of suppressing their pain. Because instead of allowing themselves to experience the pain that they're feeling, they want to like give that pain to somebody else forcefully, because they're so scared of experiencing it that they feel, well, if I explode it out and put it on that one, then they'll feel it for me, and then I don't have to feel it.
Interesting.
But instead of what it creates guilt, and then more beat up, and then more anger, and it's like a constant cycle. And it's unfortunate, and I feel like things like that lead up to, like, you know, families being broken, abuse, war.
And, you know, you kind of highlighted something that I thought was interesting too. You said kind of like that experience. Say what you said again.
Which part?
Yeah. Right before the abuse part. I don't know if you remember.
The people, instead of experiencing the pain, they want to give the pain away to other people.
So instead of giving it away, what I see too occurring is almost like sharing the pain. Like maybe not so much giving it up, but if I have to feel it, then, you know, you're going to have to feel it with me, because I'm not going through this alone. You know, and so it's almost like that sharing of the pain. It's almost like if I feel pain or if I feel shitty, then everyone else gets to feel shitty around me. And now we start to act a certain way that has people around us feel that same discomfort or that same whatever it is, you know?
Yeah, and you even see it like in an argument with someone. Like, let's say you and I are having an argument, and you see that I'm completely being neutral, right? And then like you're like, oh my, and it keeps getting you more angry. It makes me mad. So then you start try to find something to poke at, whether it be bringing something from the past, bringing something that, you know, like I'm sensitive about, and you keep going. Something that might
be even irrelevant to this argument, but it's gonna poke you, so I'm just gonna throw it in there anyways.
Yeah, and you see it in marriages. If you see a lot of marriage arguments, the mother-in-law or the father-in-law always comes in because they just want to poke at something. It's like, well, your mom. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, you know, I learned that lesson young. I think I was probably like 7 years ago. I learned when it comes to I feel my experience, like maybe I'm in pain or I'm frustrated or I'm angry, you know, and then when I blow up and I like put it on another person, what is my goal for blowing up on them, you know? And I realized that does it actually do anything productive? Does it help me? Does it help them? Does it help the situation? And what I realize is no, like all I'm trying to do is hurt you. And what is the benefit of hurting you? You know, honestly, all it does is make me feel better. But by the end of everything, when everything's said and done, we're left with that ground zero of what was like, what's left. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I like to say when things like that show up, where like you have like a short term like feeling good,
right,
but for a long term of pain,
right,
because then you keep that guilt that, oh, I can't believe I did that to that person. And so it's like a short term pleasure for long term pain.
That instant gratification. If I blow up and get it out now and hurt them, it'll all be over, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting stuff, and I really appreciate you speaking into everything that we're speaking into today. Cool. Wait, so you had a second story about being a visionary and using your vision to. Remember, you had two stories.
Oh yes, I have plenty. I have a book
Okay.
full.
All right. Let's hear a second story. Visionary living. What is something that you used a vision in order to overcome your circumstances?
Yeah. I think so. When the heartbreak showed up, it was a complete transition of my life. Um, Me and my roommate at the time were having there was a horrible relationship with our neighbors, and we were trying to end our lease, and it just things weren't working out. And I was like, no, like I'm up to big things.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, like I'm up to big things. I know I'm clear my vision. Like something's gonna show up. Something's gonna show up. And in the process of the heartbreak and everything, I literally right now I'm living in the house that I dreamed of living when I moved here.
Oh.
Literally, I have, for those that may know me, I love shopping. I love clothes. My big thing was to have a walk-in closet. I have a huge walk-in closet.
Oh, nice.
So I have, and like the house, everything that I imagine, open space kitchen, white cabinets, a pool, a huge backyard, beautiful landscaping in the front, like all that stuff. I was able to create it. And in the process of that, like we were about to get kicked out of our apartment because our neighbors kept complaining. It was so many things after that. And then in the middle of dealing with a heartbreak and not knowing what am I going to do, like, and I just kept going and going and going and like allowing myself to experience it. It's a relationship for almost 8 years. So it's kind of like you have a partnership, a companionship, and like that go-to person wasn't there anymore. And there was a moment where like my friends and family were like, come back to Jersey. Like your family and friends are here. And I could have done that, but that wasn't in alignment with my vision.
And what is your vision now?
My vision now, my big vision, or like my vision for my life?
Whatever you want to share with us.
So for me, what keeps me going is being in service to people. Being able to be a space for, again, people getting like their significance in the world, the impact they can have, for them to create the life that they love. You can create any life, you can create your 10 life, but if you're not living that life that you love, there's something there to look at. And despite it all, like I've literally created a life that I love with people around me, relationships transformed, where I'm living, where I work, like everything. I've literally created the life that I love, that I feel like a long time ago I declared and forgot. And then this transformational work, it like reawakened. And that keeps me going. So
if you could give our listeners a piece of something to take away so that they can live the life that they love, what would be your advice or your kind of takeaway for them?
No matter what you're up to, remember, you're human. Let your vision drive you. And in the process, whatever shows up, experience it. Fully allow yourself to give in and experiencing it, and let your vision guide you, drive you, because that's how you create the life that you love, and that's how you can make an impact in people's lives and inspire. Because I believe that everyone's story can inspire somebody else. And you never know the hardships, the heartbreak, the pain, the grief that may show up in you, and how you live through it, you go through it, you experience it, can inspire someone else that's looking for that inspiration.
Yeah, and just to kind of put that into perspective, because what comes up for me in terms of thinking about that is how I see people on a spectrum, right? And so, whether it's finances, whether it's intelligence, whether it's experiences, whatever, everything that we can compare ourselves to for each other, it's on a spectrum. So no matter where you are in life, we may think that we're on the bottom of that spectrum. And so from the bottom of the spectrum, how can I impact anyone above me? How can I be a contribution to anyone above me? But I think that it's very important to realize that, in 7 billion people on this planet, there's no way you're at the bottom. You're somewhere in the middle somewhere. And there are people above you that maybe are one caliber too high for you to impact or be a contribution to, but the people below in that experience like definitely could create and learn from your experiences, and it's not to minimize that you could impact people who are in maybe a better caliber of life in whatever category we're categorizing, but having that knowledge that you're not at the bottom, you're not like worthless, like what you have to say, what your experiences are in this lifetime, and what you want to share with people is powerful, and that it deserves to be heard.
Yeah, for sure. And something that you said that's like key is, excuse me, there was someone that I always looked up to.
Mm-hmm.
And through the process of the past couple of months of everything that was showing up, they share with me how inspired they were. They're like, how you've been doing this, it's inspired me. And it's someone that I looked up to.
Mm-hmm.
So you really never know like how your journey can impact or inspire someone, even someone that I looked up to.
Right. Yeah. And thank you for that, because I want people to recognize that the people that they look up to, their muse, your muse, can be the very person that's inspired by your actions as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so don't minimize the way that you live your life. Like, make sure that you live your life with honor, with integrity, with power. Dare to dream and risk what it is that you have to risk to go for that lighthouse, that vision that you're trying to attain.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And we had a comment that I wanted to speak in from Grace. Hello, Grace. She says, I connect with that. I'm really good at enrolling people into my shitty committee. So I rather process myself instead of bringing others into it. Oh, so it's almost like you want to experience your experience alone as opposed to experiencing with others. Can you speak into experiencing your experience? Would you prefer it be alone in a self journey, or do you think that it is beneficial to have other people support or experience it with you?
To be honest, I think it depends on the situation, the place where you are.
Okay.
I had both show up in my space,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them, I would have never experienced anger if it wasn't for this specific individual. Because she was like, what's going on? I'm like, I feel angry. I want to punch something.
Right.
And again, this is sweet little Noralyn who's shy, that wants to punch something.
Shy little girl.
And I'm like, I feel angry. I just want to punch something. And I just want to break something. I'm just so angry.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, you want to break something? Come with me. She found all these mugs, and then she took me out, and then she's like, throw them as hard as you can. So we were throwing them against a dumpster.
Nice.
And she's like, keep letting it out, keep letting it out, keep letting it out. Like, just feel that anger. And I felt that anger. And like, I was in tears, like rage tears. And then afterwards I felt good. So I experienced it with her, but she created that space for me to step into that, because for me, out of everything, the hardest thing for me to experience is anger. There's a lot of guilt. There was a lot of guilt for me back then of experiencing anger.
I can relate to you more than you think. For a long time, I avoided anger. I thought that anger was bad. When I was like 11, I was in like martial arts, Taekwondo, and my sensei had shared something with us that that when we access anger or rage, there, biochemically, our entire internal environment shifts in order to accommodate survival, and in that, one of the chemicals that is released, it actually reduces our IQ, or our ability to think clearly. And the reason is because if it's me or this tiger, I can't be rationalizing and thinking, well, I just raised this tiger from a kitten and I love this kitten. No, I'm going to survive this, or you're